Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes of the 2/4/19 meeting were distributed. I look for a motion to accept. Nancy,
I'll second.
Mike. Any corrections, additions, deletions?
There was something I sent you, Debbie, did you get it?
I did.
It was so little, I don't remember what it was.
In my public comment, it said Mark Curry thinks the temperature that is set in the Friends of the Library, which is 73 degrees, is too high and a waste of money. Was it something in that line?
No, it's somebody's name.
Oh, somebody's name,
Well,
sorry.
oh, it was that one, Debbie.
Yep,
You need to eliminate Friends of the Library.
okay,
It's the libraries that are on that room.
okay,
That- I knew it was little, whatever it was.
okay.
Any other corrections? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment? Please come to the podium.
I've been approached by a couple of my neighbors, and they've complained about the town not sanding driveways. And the major problem they have is the town's promoting certain businesses to do driveways. And according to them, they're using town sand, which I don't think is the truth, but I think the town board better get in front of this, because you're all been accused of using sand from taxpayers to give to private contractors to sand driveways. Just so you're aware of it, that's what's going around.
Well, there was a resolution passed against that, which you probably remember.
I remember
few
that
years
well,
ago.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, Chris.
I'm just wondering, how do we, is there a camera in there?
There's a camera close
I don't
nearby.
care personally,
Put it
it's
this way.
just.
No, I'm glad you bring
I
it
just
to our
want to-
attention. We don't want people under the wrong impression about anything.
And then.
Where, I've spoke to Bill about this.
Yeah.
He came to me,
I'm sorry. Who came to you?
Bill Wharton,
Okay.
came to me previously I should say. Where I think the discrepancy is coming from is some of the local contractors are using local contractors' trucks because they are assigned to them to sand their own driveways. They come in which they called prior, at least one of them did, and said, I'm going home to shovel, and I'm gonna stop there and put sand in the truck and shovel it out in my driveway when I get home. But because it has the local contractor's name on the side of it, it's going to raise this dilemma.
So it's employees of local contractors.
Correct. Using,
What
not
we-
that they're coming
they're
in with sand
employees.
trucks and sanders and so on and so forth, they're using a pickup truck that they drive every day. And they're sanding their own driveways, is what I've been told. Okay, I'm not chasing people down the road to see if where this drop of sand goes and that sand goes. We keep it open for the locals to use, the taxpayers to use that sand. If there's dishonesty amongst the whole thing, we're gonna have to gate the yard. And that's the only way to stop it, because they can come in there after hours, they can do whatever. would have a state trooper sitting there or a local sheriff sitting there. I don't think they wanna do that 24/7. The state highway departments and so on and so forth are all gated for a reason. More than likely, this has come up into their situation. Personally, I don't think it's happening as his neighbors said, but, I see where the discrepancy is coming from when they see the trucks coming in and out of it. Are they coming in and out of there all day long, every day? No, but you can count, there's definitely coming in and out of it. Where that sand goes, I don't follow them home to make sure they drop it off at, sand that driveway.
Randy, if we were to leave, I don't even know if there's a door on that building, okay, but saying there is.
Which door on that bill?
On
The salt
sand-
shed?
The salt shed, yeah,
Oh, not a door, there's an entranceway, a big one,
right,
because tractor trailers back in and dump.
okay, and that cannot be closed, but
No.
it could be gated.
We'd have to gate the yard,
Right.
How would we gate the yard? It's so
Fence
big.
it all in.
fence it in and gate it right at the front.
I don't think people are taking salt more than likely.
No, I don't,
They're taking the mix.
they're taking mixed sand and salt.
Their biggest concern is that you're getting out of the sanding driveway business, which they used to get as part of their tax bill. And now you're promoting private industries, and they just felt from what they had heard that these private industries were using taxpayers. That's it, just,
Yep.
you gotta
Thanks,
get the
Bill.
word out there.
Appreciate it.
And as far as your other just thing is if emergency services needs Randy, I'm sorry, if Speculator Fire Department or Lake Pleasant needs a stand truck,
It's going.
it's going, but it won't be too late, Randy. If I come to a driveway with a hill in it, I can't make it up with a fire truck to fight a fire, I'm out of business.
Right.
We've never had this problem, but then too, the town has sanded driveways with hills and some of them are long today, so, that's all.
Thank you, Bill. Yes,
Betsy Bain, Lake Pleasant. Actually, I'm gonna add to what Bill's topic just was. It's come to our attention that my husband has been accused of coming to the town hall, taking sand in his dump truck, and going and sanding driveways and getting paid for it.
Okay.
We purchase all our sand from Rhodes Construction. I can show receipts. He has never been to the town hall and taken anything from them. And I just want everybody on this board to know, it's rumor, and it needs to stop, and if you wanna see receipts, I'll gladly bring in the receipts. That's it.
First I've heard that rumor.
Oh, it's going around.
Our people lovely.
anybody else? Okay, committee reports, Randy, Highway.
Okay, as far as highway goes, please everybody after the meeting, go home slowly. It's going to be icy all night. Trucks are doing very well. We have not had any major repairs. Some of you may have seen one of our trucks with me in it stranded on the side of Route 8 a week ago or so. It was cold enough that the air system froze up on the truck, and we had to do some roadside repairs to get it back to the shop. And it seemed to raise a lot of questions and everything else. We had two trucks sitting there with air hoses running between them and so on and so forth. But I've heard some rumors that we got in an accident and so on and so forth. Not so. We did a shared services this past Saturday with the village. They needed assistance and for two men and two pieces of equipment to repair a water line, and which we gladly did so. And that's, which I stress this whole shared service contracts, being longer than 1 year at a time. I believe we're into a 3-year contract because normally by now we might not even have a contract set up. But we did go to a 3-year shared services contract. The village highway department was grateful for us, and we were grateful that they called and asked, and we were able to help them on Saturday night. Everything turned out well, nothing was broke, so it cost us man time, that's all. Heat in here, I'm going into buildings. Long story short, they brought in Mike Fisher, Jim Reese, the architect, engineer, the spray foam company that did the spray foaming here, to review the heating system. They found that where the ductwork is, just above the ceiling between here and the floor, because the floor is spray foamed above, there seems to be a lot of heat loss from the ductwork itself. They're getting us a quote on having that spray foamed so that we don't lose that heat in between and then it ends up out there on those eaves. That's why they feel that it's a little bit from everything, but that's why the eaves have so much loss. You open that ceiling out there, a lot of heat comes down immediate as soon as you open it. So we're going to put louvers in several places out there to not allow that heat to be trapped. Mike Fisher's gonna get the simple Home Depot stuff, take out some of the regular ceiling panels and put in a louvered panel. That way at least any heat that is in there can come down into the room. We're not pushing it towards the outside.
So why wouldn't we think it would go the other way?
Well, heat normally rises unless
Yeah.
we feel that there's at least a 20-degree difference. When they opened up that, they got blasted with hot air. So my first question was, is there a duct that's not hooked up?
Yeah.
And they commenced to look everything over and found nothing that's not hooked up. So they feel it's just between the joints and it's just single wrap insulation ductwork. It's, and over time it builds up heat in there. So if there's that big of a temperature difference, we might as well use it, it will come back down into here. So that, at least it's not trapped air at that point. This trapped air is going out to the eaves, to the cold. The thermostat just inside here was found defective. So they replaced it. And everything is set at 70 degrees. If you guys notice, it's much cooler in here.
It's cool.
The nighttime after the shift is done, they turn it to 65, and then they turn it back up when they come back in the next day. You guys went next door into the other rooms that were in question
Yeah.
and didn't seem drastic.
No, not at all.
So,
And both doors, all the doors were shut.
right.
And the folks asked that when we leave the private open, make sure the doors are open. So I
Right,
told them.
right.
So,
Simple enough.
yep,
So we're waiting for the quote to spray foam around all the ductwork, each duct, with closed cell spray foam so that it, we don't, trying to minimize the heat loss into these 2-foot areas between the ceiling and that floor.
okay.
Grooming, we've been grooming almost every day, either one trail or another, not full days, but 3 hours here, 4 hours there, depending on what trails needed. Getting a lot of compliments on the trails. The local businesses that are involved are thanking us for doing what we're doing and when we're doing it. And I think they're very appreciative of it. The groomers themselves, knock on wood, this being the busiest week, are all up and running and with no major repairs. So hydraulic line here or there. But, both clubs are fully functional as far as groomers. And after some, I guess you could say, corrosion assistance, persuasion, whatever, they got on track with what trails need to be groomed when and how often. I had several meetings last week with them. And that's about it.
So it ended well.
It ended well. They understood that this is the busiest week that we have, and that once a week is not enough, so.
Okay.
Good. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Under old business, Board of Assessment Review appointment. Does anybody have a name to bring forward to be talked about or dealt with? If not,
My understanding that Gary Reinhardt has applied for the position,
okay.
and I would like to move that we appoint him.
We have a move on Gary Reinhardt. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Now we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm abstaining. Gary is a relative.
Gary, when do you go for your training?
You said.
I called, the real property tax and Barry Baker's gonna be doing it sometime in March.
So it'll be the
March
next
or-
class.
Right, and it's gonna be locally done, so he doesn't have to go out of town for it. And Gary, I'll get your oath of office to you too in the next couple of days too. Yep.
So you'll notify him that he got the
I did
position?
notify him already under speculation that he was being appointed, so.
Okay. Okay, item number 2 is the approval to hire Nancy Syke, if needed, by account clerk Kathy Aird on the audit report. That audit report is the one that goes to the state of New York Controller's Office. So I don't know if anybody has more information on that than I have, other than.
Well, I'll move it so we can discuss it, if somebody wants to second.
I'll second.
I have a concern about this, because we hired Nancy last year to train Kathy how to do this annual update document. And does it make sense to do the same thing twice when it didn't work? You know what I'm saying? Should we perhaps be thinking of, I don't know, Nancy can speak to this a lot better than me. I don't know the extent of Kathy's work responsibilities. I don't know if doing the AUD is too much for a new account clerk, because she is still fairly new. Is this something we wanna look at doing every year, just automatically bringing in somebody to do the AUD? Or do we wanna hire Nancy not only to help Kathy with this year's AUD, but to give her more training? So just, I thought I'd throw it out there for us all to talk about and see where we end up.
Well, it's a huge task. It
Yeah.
isn't, just plugging in numbers. There's a lot of accounting involved and all, and I am not sure. Last year, put it this way, last year when I helped Kathy, we made a manual up. And, I'm hoping that will help her, show her where different numbers are drawn from. So that would give her like a way of looking at it. I know she was concerned a couple of weeks ago and had the pressure of the report being due on the 28th of February. And, I understand that, Dan requested an extension on that, which will be till the end of April. So I think she feels a little bit relieved that she doesn't have to have it done in that timely a fashion. I don't know if she's gotten into it yet to you know, I haven't spoken to her about it at all, to know if she's been working on it, to see if she's stumped, you know, on it or
Yeah.
whatever. It is an amazing, extensive report.
Well, I'm very glad that you worked on a manual for her to follow. That's good news. Has she gone yet for the training from the state comptroller's office?
That I can't answer to.
See,
I
that was
don't
another
know.
question I had, because I kind of feel like if she's shown some initiative to go for the training she has to have, then she might know how to do this, but I don't know if she's gone for any.
If she had, you would have approved her mileage.
Well,
Or,
that's-
I'm sure of that.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's online training. It's, the controller's training, I never went to that. I was involved with the design of that program when it initially
I was
came
gonna
out.
say, you were there when it started, so
Right.
you kind
So,
of learned as
yeah,
it went.
I went to Albany and helped them design the program.
So you went from the bottom up rather than,
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, it is, a lot of towns hire people to do it for them. I know Arietta had in the past, and, you know, I don't know what to say. I'm not gonna speak for myself to do this, but I just know that it's time consuming.
what, obviously, I think you're the best one in the room to answer the question. What kind of hours do you feel it would take to assist and or do? You know, would you be taking a month, 2 weeks?
It depends honestly on how much she can do on her own. What I did last year with her was I would get her through a certain portion and say, okay, this is what you do here, and then she would do it. And then I would go in and, you know, I didn't spend the month of January with her, or you
Okay.
know, whenever it was. I just kind of coached her along. So, you know, and with that manual, there are parts of it that are very easy to just put in figures, you know, as far as the budget figures and all that. That's not difficult. The accounting part of it is difficult, doing the, but balance sheets and all that.
So it has an income statement, a balance sheet? Okay.
Yeah, that part is a lot more difficult, and the general fund is always a headache, and the capital projects fund.
Right, because you got money going several different directions.
I told her the best bet would be to start with, you know, like some of the smaller funds and work her way. And I don't know if Dan did anything with the Consolidated Health District, because that was always a good practice one to do, because it was easy, that, and, the smaller funds, just to get your feet wet. I would do that every year, as kind of like a refresher, so.
Well, I don't, personally, I don't have any idea of the direction that we, if obviously she doesn't feel she can go forward from where she is, or needs to be prodded to go forward, I don't know how to read that. And I don't know if anybody else does here either. Obviously, some kind of decision should be made, because the end of April will be here quicker than we like, so.
And that's done during the regular part of what she does normally,
Okay,
so that's why I spent weekends at the office, you know, because you have
okay,
to.
well, you don't have interruptions to speak of on the weekend, right?
That, and you needed I needed the extra time to do it correctly, I felt.
Was it 2,500 last year?
Yeah, but that wasn't just for that. That was for any help I gave her during the year, and we didn't even get near that.
I thought it was just the AUD.
No, it was any assistance, you know, if she needed help with something.
Well, I guess there's a couple of questions. If the board were to approve, would you be willing to do that or not? Or do we need to
Yes, I
look
would.
someplace else?
I would be willing. I wouldn't have a dollar amount as far, I don't think I'd want to make less than I was making last year.
Yeah, per hour. Yeah, I understand
But you
that.
said that wasn't just for the AUD.
Right, I'm not talking about the total amount, I'm talking about the hourly, because I didn't get a
Oh,
salary.
hourly, okay.
Yeah,
So what would be your hourly charge?
well, I think it was about 28, 50-ish. You know, I don't remember it was what I was making before I retired, it was the same amount. I'm sure if you hire an accountant or someone else to help, it would be a whole lot more than that.
Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to get a handle on what we might have to pay.
Well,
I'm not adverse to hiring you to
Oh,
help.
no,
Kathy.
and believe
What
me,
I'm looking at is further down the road, and is this gonna be an annual thing? And if so, should we look at adjusting her salary to reflect the fact that somebody else has to be brought in to do part of her job, which before you retired was all one person's job? You see where I'm going? So
well,
well, I won't take it if it comes from her pay, I'll tell you that right now.
that wouldn't be
'cause
done
that
this
would-
year, obviously, that would be
No.
something to think about for the future.
Yeah.
You know, if
Because
she's
she-
unable to do it again next year, then I would look
Because-
at that.
I would assume that she would be working right alongside me, I'm not gonna do it on my own, 'cause there's no point in that, you know.
what if, I'll just throw this out there, because we're not going anyplace at the moment. What if we were to put out maybe 20 hours for you to work with her to see, and then reevaluate that 20 hours, maybe at the next meeting or very soon? Because right now, I think the only information we have is what Kathy is telling us,
Right,
which is not, I'm not saying it's bad information, it's just, you, having done that in the past, you would probably have a better idea where she is and what,
yeah, I haven't really discussed
yeah.
what she's been doing
Right,
about
that's
it
why
yet,
I'm
if she's
saying,
even
you know,
started.
if we made if we approved a small amount for so many hours and then
Yeah.
evaluate at that point, I don't know, that's just a toss out there.
That sounds like a
We
good
meet
idea.
again, we're gonna meet again the first week in March, it's really not that far away.
Right, but I'm
But
not
you
gonna
may
be
not have
here.
that time, so, well,
Can you file a report
Okay.
by email?
I'm not,
Well-
I mean, I'm gonna be away, so I won't be at that meeting.
Well, worst
which would
case-
be a good time to talk about this, but,
but do you think you'd have time to work with her before that meeting or not?
possibly sometime next week if she,
Well, I mean, the ball's kind of, from my standpoint right now, the ball's kind of your.
We could give her a month.
So then we would be talking the 15th of March, which would still be a month and a half before D-Day.
Right.
So
that would make it easier
does that
for
make
me.
sense to people? I mean, I'm not trying to persuade everybody to do
I
anything.
think it's an excellent idea.
Just tossing it out there.
So you're giving a 20-hour allowance
Yeah.
between when she starts to review by March 15th?
Yep. And if she finds out next week, well, this is gonna take a lot more than that, well, then
Okay.
make it known to us. I mean, whether you're here or not, you can make it known.
Yeah, and I'd have to fit it in with her regular
Right.
schedule
understand.
also, so, and
Yeah.
and mine, so,
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple balls in the air there, I
Yeah,
understand that,
yeah.
So,
Well, when you were the account clerk, did you have to work overtime to do that AUD?
I did not get overtime.
But
Never
you
got
worked extra
overtime,
time.
but I worked extra time
Okay,
and
unpaid extra time.
comp time, you know, like I would use it instead of a vacation day if I had a doctor, you know, if I had an appointment or
Okay.
something like that. Yeah, but I would work. In fact, when Dan first started, he came in and he says to me, "Are you working overtime?" First words out of his mouth when he saw me there on a Saturday. And it was like, no, I'm, you know, trying to get things done.
It's just the way the workflow goes.
Yeah, the beginning of the
beginning of
year
the year
is
is heavy.
It's crazy in Debbie's office and.
well, you're trying to clean up one year and start another one.
Yeah,
I
which,
know all
yeah,
about that.
plus we're gathering taxes, so, I mean, I've worked a lot of weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, but
Oh, yeah, I'm sure
what
you
we
have.
do.
Yeah, so, you know, but I'll try to fit it into her schedule and see if she got started and how she's doing also, you know, because if she's doing fine on her own, that's good too.
Well, I'll put that in the form of a motion for 20 hours
At
to hire Nancy.
the hourly rate she was getting last year,
Correct.
I'll
before she
second that.
retired.
So
I'll
we have a
recuse
motion and a
myself.
And second by Mike.
Yeah, we've been seconded. haven't we?
For any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I assume Nancy is
I'm
abstaining.
recusing, yeah,
Okay,
and that was very uncomfortable.
I
Well,
know.
it's always good to be a little uncomfortable, you know, you have to get out of your comfort zone once. in a while.
There you go.
Nice, Bob.
Some things just.
You know, I
have
don't
to be
run this
addressed.
meeting very often either.
No,
so,
hey.
you know, Okay. Anybody have anything else under old business?
The DEC thing.
The DEC, I talked with Dan today, and he had good news. It appears that DEC is gonna pick up a monitor for the wash station. So it sounds like they would be paying for it, is my understanding of what he said. So he'll have more details, I'm sure, at the
Yeah,
next
that was
meeting.
the question.
So
was whether that-
one steward by the Paul Smith money and by grant money, and one by DEC?
Owned by DEC.
Because, I mean, we're not sure.
I'm not sure about the Paul Smith.
'Cause we're not
but
sure whether we're getting
The only
that
one he
grant.
talked to me about today was the DEC.
Okay,
So,
so
That
we're
they were gonna pay for a second person,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
Okay.
yeah, that's how I interpret it.
At where we keep the wash stations, or would it be like at Moffitt's or something like that?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
My understanding is that the decontamination set, wash below the village at the parking area is gonna, if I got this right, this was a conversation a little while ago, but we also have responsibility for the one at the Indian Lake campground. And I think the second person that DEC is gonna pay for is like gonna go down and help the person below the village open up in the mornings and put the mat out and all that stuff, and then help them close up in the afternoon, fill in when they're sick or on vacation. So I think they'd be doing the same thing at the Indian Lake campground.
Kind of floating, or?
Yeah, I guess so, I don't know what you call it, and I don't have enough information to be certain about that, but that's what my understanding
So at
of
least
it
if
is.
DEC picks it up, then the town's not picking it up, and I think that was her question.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, yeah.
The money thing, yeah.
DEC is gonna pay for an
Okay,
additional
that's right.
person.
Okay,
And, I guess also for next year, is the impression I got.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Dan was feeling good, he didn't talk very long. But I'll give him a heads up tomorrow. I'll give him a call, let him know what we talked about and see, so he has a good narrative for us for the next meeting. So write that down, Bob, so you don't forget.
send an email tomorrow, Bob.
One other thing under old business, I just wanted to inform the board that the Lake Pleasant Emergency Management Committee is, forging ahead, and the vulnerable population registry that the nursing service is working on should be approved by the board of supervisors at their next meeting. So that will be
It should be next
part
week.
of the emergency plan. Right now, we've been working on the list of disaster resources. So that's going very well. We're very fortunate to have Barbara Taylor of the nursing service helping us with this, because she's done these things all over the country apparently.
Anything else under old business?
Can I chime in?
Why not?
Did anybody get to the end of figure out that budget transfer that I questioned a couple meetings ago on the boat wash station stuff? That very large sum.
Not to my understanding, it has not been talked about.
Dan was gonna talk to Caitlin, right?
Yeah, I have no idea where it went from there, I just didn't think
I
that,
seem to remember the same thing coming up last year.
yeah, I just didn't think, I'm just wondering if it ever got answered.
Yeah.
In
I
my
think
mind,
the
that's a
problem-
big number floating around.
I think the problem was when this whole grant started, that no one understood it. It's
I
always,
don't think we still understand
it
it.
was the most confusing thing I'd ever heard. And I was working with the numbers at the time in the office, and it still didn't make any sense, so.
So I'll talk to Dan about the answer to that as well. Now, is that, I don't know where he gets his answer from, I guess from
Kathy?
Kathy, I guess. Okay. Anything else, Chris?
No, that was all I had, thank you.
Okay. Under new business, we have a resolution for sanding private driveways, which was put together by Nancy. Nancy, would you like to present that?
Sure.
Or am I making you uncomfortable again?
Oh, yes, but I'll read it. Resolution number, I'm not sure what, of 2019, to amend Resolution 131 of 2018, authorizing the superintendent of highways, and when the town supervisor declares an ice emergency, or deputy town supervisor in the absence of the supervisor, to sand private driveways of those who will be on call on the current list, dated February 20th, 2019. Whereas any delay in the ability of the ambulance corps or fire departments to respond to an emergency due to ice on private driveways when emergency services dispatch has to contact the highway superintendent to get man and truck to sand the driveway of the patient or burning home is potentially dangerous. And whereas according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 96 residents and 63 households in the town of Lake Pleasant are over the age of 65. And whereas a great number of the winter residents of the town of Lake Pleasant are on a fixed income or work at low-paying positions, making it difficult to pay for multiple sandings of their driveways by private contractors. And whereas the sanding of private driveways in the event of an ice emergency has been the practice of the town of Lake Pleasant until the winter of 2018-2019, therefore be it resolved that the superintendent of highways, after the town supervisor or in his absence, the deputy town supervisor declares an ice emergency, will sand private driveways of those who call, as has been practiced in the past, at the earliest availability of man and machine from the town of Lake Pleasant Highway Department.
We'll move it so I can second it.
Oh, excuse me, I'll move it.
I'll second it so we can talk about it. Okay, I got a question. Under the be it resolved, and, of those who call. Anybody who calls?
That's been the
Over
practice.
That's
Well,
what
I
was in
thought
the
the
past.
practice was somebody who was ill, sick,
No,
No,
feeble.
not my job to determine whether or not they're ill, sick, or
right.
whatever, it's when they call, they get the
Anybody,
name
that's been
down,
the practice.
hence the list was extensive.
Well, it's not your job to determine it, let's figure out something that'll work, because I agree with you, you can't be sending your men out there. You have to, this is always gonna happen after you've been out all night,
Correct.
it's just, that's the way it is.
Yep, and, I mean, the biggest issue is when the people call, which I understand, don't get me wrong, I don't wanna be misworded. I need to get out by 9 AM. Well, I don't know if I can get somebody there by 9 AM.
And that should.
And when there's 17 of them that are on opposite ends of town, it doesn't work.
No, you see that.
We will get
that-
to you, we will
yeah.
start typically at one end of town and go to the other. And what I was doing in the past is, if this storm, we started at Page Street, the next storm, we started at Oxbow Road. And the next one, we went back to starting at Page Street, and that's the way we rotated it. And it's the only, there is no fair way of doing it, it's just, you know.
Well, yeah, if you're gonna do all of them, that's a nice way to do it.
Right. And we went down the list and, you know, the list grows and grows and grows.
I think if someone were to call and say, I need to be out of my driveway by 9, then you would say, I can't get to you by then, perhaps then they can call a private person to do it. I mean.
Or complain to you.
Or complain,
Or complain.
but.
Couple of questions. From that census, do you know if those 63 households was town-wide or
Town outside the village, yeah.
just town outside the village, okay? The list that's being compiled by the emergency management, are those the people we're really talking about? Or are we talking about everybody?
Every years.
Well, I-
I would talk about the people who have been in the past getting this service.
Okay, do we have a way of knowing who those are? I mean,
I can make up another list, I do not have
Yeah,
such list.
I just throw a question out there, that's all on there.
We've done it enough times that we pretty much, I can go down every street and say which ones have asked.
So, let
Or
me,
we can start scratch and put it, it's opening up a can of worms here. Say,
You know,
call us.
I'd like to table this until we get the vulnerable population registry, and then we can take a look at that. We can have you look it over, say, oh yeah, almost all these are people that have called in the past because they needed us to sand. Or maybe you're gonna say, geez, these people have never called and here are the ones that really need it, you know? I'd just like to table it until we get that list.
But we're having ice now,
Yep.
and it could be next fall before we get this vulnerable list, and I think time is of the essence to take care of that.
We should have it after the first Thursday of the next month. They expect to approve it then.
The first Thursday of the next month will
March,
be the
first
beginning of
Thursday of
March,
March, yeah.
after the next town board meeting.
so then we would be talking about it on the 15th of March.
And let it be said that the Village of Speculator is still doing it for their residents and taxpayers.
Well, that's good, you know,
Yeah, you're in the
because I
You
won't.
can call Bob.
Do you wanna put an age on it?
Pardon me, how old are you? Yeah, I mean, I don't know that,
Well, that's the predicaments that,
well, I mean,
if you're not gonna do everybody,
yeah,
where do you draw the line?
yeah, exactly.
And again, with the emergencies and the fire department,
No, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah, I
with your
understand what you're saying.
vulnerable list, if you're not gonna do everybody, where do you draw that line? And who draws that line?
Well, that vulnerable population list is composed of people who the nursing service has had as clients, either currently or in the past. They're either on oxygen, they're disabled, they're very feeble, and they need personal care aides in a couple times a week. They're actually sick, you know? Those are the people that are most in need of it, and they tend to be elderly.
Does it cover the financially stressed?
No, it has nothing to do with their financial situation. It's the people that are most in need of being checked on when there's an emergency.
well, those people definitely need assistance.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing with that, but I think there are a great number of people who aren't in that situation that need assistance also. And those are the people that I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for.
It's not a judge, it's a supervisor.
Yeah, I understand the
Yeah.
only difference of opinion we have
Files
is,
are down.
You're right.
do we do it all or do we limit it to the people
Yeah.
who are most in need?
And like Bill spoke earlier, and I held my tongue till this, that there is a lag. We did put in earlier about having emergency services call when there's an icy driveway and they can't get an ambulance up. And there's a lag by the time they get to Randy, and Randy is able to either go out himself or send people out that could cause a tragedy. And that was one of my concerns with this.
Okay, I'll do another what if. What if we were to make this, say, from now until the 15th of April, just to see how it goes
You
You mean
put it in place for
temporary?
the rest of this winter?
for the rest of this winter, not December, November of next year.
Yeah,
I was just tossing something out there, so,
well, that would be one way to handle it, obviously.
and then you would know what that looked like then.
This winter. And then is it it?
To continue to do, I'm sorry.
It's just a
I'm only
suggestion.
discussing.
Suggestion.
Yeah, well, I'm in discussion, just an idea, for discussion, I guess, maybe.
I also worked up with, from another easement permission, I worked up a consent order so that if the board felt that that would be a good idea to have the property owners, if there's a concern of liability, to have the property owners sign that they will allow the highway department to do this and sign off, their permission.
I'm certainly in favor of that. I guess the only question is, at what point does that happen? Does that happen when we do it, or has
No,
to be,
I-
it has to be done prior?
Right. Yeah, anybody that is interested in that, I would say,
So that's
prior.
derived from our dropping off dirt situation.
Derived from our what?
When we drop off
Ditch
ditch
dirt.
dirt, we do ditching and people
Oh.
want dirt in their yard, we
I was
have
just
to
gonna
sign
ask you.
something, I assume is that.
It's
That
similar, yeah,
says-
yeah.
If we back in and
Yeah,
you don't tell us that there's a septic tank there and we back through it, well,
yeah.
It's your
I just don't
liability.
intend to hold up the truck.
And that was reviewed by the attorney to the town, right?
Correct.
Okay. Where you say this is a temporary easement, would that be just for that one winter, for that particular day, 30
Well,
days, a
for
week?
I'm not an attorney, all I did was just change it from
well,
that,
hold on a minute. Can I chime in on this?
yes,
You, if you're gonna do that, I would at least do monthly or for the winter.
yeah, it
For
would
the
have to
season.
be for the.
Every
yeah.
time, if I'm gonna have 60 people walking in my yard, I might as well sit in my office.
No,
all
no,
day.
no, Randy, I meant this, like, at the beginning of the winter, not for,
Right, not every single storm,
right,
I'm like,
oh,
oh.
yeah.
So can we change that to this
They would
is-
be bothering Debbie, they
Yeah,
probably
they'd be on
wouldn't be
CW.
bothering.
change it to this is a
Okay.
temporary easement, good for one winter only? Something like that?
Sure.
Does that cover your concern?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the paperwork that's gonna
Well,
be involved if you do every storm.
I only added this in case the board felt that there was a need for something like that, as an
I think
idea to
there
go
is.
Yeah, I
by.
still haven't heard
This
from
wasn't,
anybody of what the liability with our insurance company, with our lawyers, ever ended up as doing this. Normally, once you declare an emergency,
right,
a state of emergency, then we're covered. But now you're declaring it not a state of emergency for the town, you're declaring an ice emergency, so is that the same? I don't know.
I initially called it a state of emergency, but I was corrected that it would be an ice emergency, so that, I don't know.
Right.
And I don't know why it would be different than it always has been as a state of emergency.
Right. I don't know the legalities of what
But nonetheless,
is involved to declare either or.
Well, when you declare a state of emergency, that triggers a cascade of paperwork that Debbie and Dan have to start. And then it goes up to Don Purdy at the County Emergency Management Office.
Why
And then it
though?
goes up to the state.
Well, why? Why can't we,
That's their
as
rules.
a municipality, have our own rules? I don't, it's getting out of control. It
Well,
seems
it's like the
like
difference
every-
between a medical center and a health center. You know, a medical center is Albany Medical Center. There are specific things that people have to meet in order to have a medical center, which we're never gonna meet up here. But it's just terminology that's used in this particular area, that's all.
So in other words, the supervisor would declare an ice emergency.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Or the deputy supervisor, as I understand it on here.
Well, how this is.
And state of emergency makes you, also you're eligible to apply for state and federal aid.
Okay, so if our power goes out for 2 weeks, we would have to declare a state of emergency and,
Absolutely. I would.
and then that triggers all this nonsense.
Yeah, and then the eligibility for when there was that ice storm in '98, or most of it up north, but we had some of it. It was all state of emergency, and a lot of money came down from the federal government on that to restore the infrastructure. And to make the highway department whole. They ran through their budgets in no time flat, cutting trees out of the roads. So it's that kind of thing, that's all. So, if this were to pass, then this sanding would only happen when an ice emergency was declared?
That's the way I read
Right,
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
it, which is declared by town supervisor
right.
or deputy.
If he's not available.
if he's not available.
Or neither than you. So,
Yeah,
right.
so where does that, when people call, we just refer them to the town supervisor? And he makes that decision, correct? Because my phone rings off the hook, and you all know that.
Well, I would think you would be the person most qualified to inform the town supervisor if it's necessary to declare an ice emergency. I mean, if your trucks are out there skidding around and they gotta plow backwards so that they can put sand down first.
Well, it's kind of a no-brainer that if you have snow on your driveway and it rains,
You will have ice, yeah.
you have ice. You don't have to even have it on the roads at that time if it's just plain rain that does that. So, and in those cases, and that's probably what we'll be up against in the next few weeks, Randy won't have his trucks on the road for those, except for maybe the state road going up to Louis or something, because it'll be warm, but the ice in my driveway, or my driveway, which goes down to Route 8 by a hill, I know will be icy. And I'm sure everybody else's will be also.
Well, I guess at that point, then they would contact the supervisor. That would be his discretion, I guess.
Then he can call me if he feels it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it has to start with him. That person, anyway. Yeah, I readily admit you're probably the best in the
Well,
situation
I'll
to
be
do
out in
it,
it the most, let's put it that way.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that responsibility should fall to you.
No. No, I think his opinion carries a lot of
Yes,
weight.
yes, oh, absolutely. So if I were supervisor, I would take a call from Mr. Smith. Where is he? There he is. And I'd tell him he lives in the village. No.
You live in the village.
I would say, I'll contact the supervisor and see if he wants to declare a nice emergency.
Okay. I just wanna know that.
And if
where
I
we're
got the
leaving
call
this off,
first, I
you know what I
would
mean?
touch base with you. I mean, that's how I would do it. Doesn't make the way it is or will be.
Right.
So where are we at? We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We had discussion.
You amended.
Now we have.
Well, we didn't amend it.
Then it was tabled.
And then we had a
motion to table,
to table.
nobody seconded
Nobody
it.
seconded. Okay. So does anybody have an interest in seconding that motion? Does anybody have an interest in changing amending the,
Amending the amendment.
yeah, well, I don't think we have an amendment at this point, correct?
Well, you suggested putting a,
Well, I just threw out an idea.
and I think it's an idea that we should discuss. You know,
I would say at the very least, it should go through the end of this winter until we can see what this
hand out
list.
something.
It doesn't sound like the county's list is gonna cover, will cover too many of the townspeople, but.
Well, this is the thing, we need to see what they come up with. So I'd be willing to go along with that.
It's her resolution, so I
I know.
don't know if he wants to amend it or not.
Yes, at least, I don't want it to,
Go away.
yeah, totally. So I would say definitely through this winter amendment, amend it to state ending when, May? When does the winter end?
Well, I guess we get
To
to
be
choose.
safe, we better say July 30th.
So you want to amend that to, you want to put a date there? You want to say May 1st? Are you comfortable with that?
Sure, yes.
What
Where
about,
would we even put that?
Put it right at the end.
what about the second? Are you holding to your second?
Yes,
Okay, any further discussion?
does that work for you?
Deb, you've got all the information?
Nope,
No.
nada.
You do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Okay, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh. Did that change too?
No, because this wasn't part of the resolution, this was just a suggestion.
Oh, all right. Because it was
So I think we should have a resolution on that.
improving it, yeah.
Put it in line.
But how would we go about that at this point?
Well, this can easily be changed every year to add in the year, like, this is a temporary easement covering the winter of 2018 through 19. Every year it'd be easy enough to change
No, but
those.
I don't mean the document, I mean how, if tomorrow morning, everybody's driveway is icy, how would we go about doing this before that?
It's hard to ask them to come and sign a piece of paper when they can't get out of the driveway.
Is my point.
Well, you'll just have to have a list, and we'll have to, if it happens to be tomorrow, then we'll have to deal with it, but then after that,
You gotta come in,
right,
sign.
If you can get that on the website, Chris.
do we need to do anything as a board on that, or it just is ready to be executed? The easement, or the,
Well, I think
release.
we should approve it if we're gonna have Randy using this as a
Yeah,
legal
exactly.
form.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I would move that we adopt the temporary easement that Nancy has adjusted for this situation, with the one change that this is a temporary easement for the winter of 2018 through 19.
I would say to coincide with the resolution.
Or just this
The
one,
term
to
of the
have it
resolution.
end on May,
Or for the current winter, would that be better?
ending May 1st, or
Then you wouldn't have to change it every year.
Right. So Chris has a motion. Do we have a second
I'll second it.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Winter only.
Motion carries.
I guess
I
we don't
have
have to put
this
the
in
date on it, so we don't need to put the date to the winter.
Where's the thing? Oh, yeah.
Anything else under new business?
It's slow, but I eventually get there.
Nancy, anything for new business?
No.
Chris?
Nope.
Mike?
No.
Bob? No? Okay, motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment?
Okay, now, may I ask a question? So are our driveways getting sanded or not? Is that what this means? I mean, this was back in September and October when Randy brought it up and said we couldn't do this anymore. And we've spent all the months of the fall, and now here we are going into spring. I mean, we sanded our driveway ourselves, you know, got the buckets, threw it out, get my yak tracks on, walk
We
on
did
it.
too.
I'm 72 years old and I'm still doing it, you know?
Me
What
too.
age do we say we need help? What age do we say we don't need help? Where do we draw the line?
I don't think there is a line right now for age.
Okay, so people that had it done last year can have it done this year.
If
Randy.
a ice emergency is called by the
Okay.
supervisor.
First, Mr. Will has to declare an emergency.
Okay,
Then once that emergency is called, then anybody that calls in signs so said paper, except for tomorrow morning. Then we sand the driveway.
That's this year.
That's this year, from now to May
first.
1st, whatever date was on there.
Is the ice emergency going to be declared because the roads are icy or because my driveway's icy?
That was what I said with the rain.
That is up to Mr. Will.
Yeah.
And is her driveway icy good enough for my driveway being icy?
Correct. There's,
That's why we said in the fall that this was gonna be a no-brainer and we weren't gonna do it. And now we're doing it again. It just seems like we keep doing.
That's light.
Yep.
and that's why I said if you're gonna do one,
Yep, go down the line.
you gotta go down the line.
We should have been doing it all along.
Do we have it in our budget? Have we budgeted for the men to be sanding people's driveways all the time?
No.
And when we talk
But the
about the
men are
low income
working, they're
people,
not doing this as overtime, the men are out during the day working, this isn't overtime time.
So why did you vote it out before if you're voting it back in now? It just is.
No.
We didn't
overtime.
vote it out
the driveways
before.
the driveways will not be sanded, even if there's an ice emergency,
This
if the
isn't
men have to be
public
working
comment.
on
If
overtime.
you're gonna speak, please come to the podium.
Is that what you just said?
Well,
If the driveways are sanded, or if the ice emergency is declared, and the men have already gotten their 40 hours in, tough tamales, they're not gonna sand, because you just said it wouldn't be overtime.
no, I'm saying they're not gonna be out at night to be sanding
No, they're gonna be
driveway.
out at night to be plowing, and then overtime during the day to be sanding.
No, they get only their overtime is what they work beyond their 8-hour day. It's not
Which
based
may
on.
be sanding.
Could be, or
6
it
to
could be
2:30
picking garbage.
is standard time.
It's
They could be
standard
on
time.
garbage, they could be doing whatever. They could be out plowing roads.
Right.
So if an ice emergency is declared at night, after the hours of 2:30, I would assume the town board does not want me paying overtime for the guys to be out sanding.
So they won't be sanding until the morning,
Morning.
it's still an emergency.
Correct. Which it will be, because
And
it
is
didn't go
every
away, it's not going
taxpayer
away.
going to be serviced here?
what's that?
Every taxpayer is going to get their driveway serviced?
Anybody
Carol,
that
if you
calls
don't
in
want yours
at this
done,
point in
you
time.
don't have to have it
No, no,
done.
I'm just wondering if I qualify.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's no call, it's a phone call.
So it's not the over the age of 63?
No.
No, not at all.
It's
No,
not
that was just the point, that there are a lot, that this is an elderly
Okay, so
community.
I have misunderstood, that's why I'm
Well,
trying to
that's
get
something that I-
clarification is, it's not just the elderly, the
Correct.
low
No.
income,
Correct.
it's everybody in town.
Everybody who
For this
qualifies
winter.
For this winter.
Okay,
Because I want to see that vulnerable list before we make a final decision.
okay.
Final.
And I know that some people don't realize, I worked for the highway department, we did this, I worked there for 30-some years. We we did it in order that the phone calls came in. Some people didn't get it done that day. Sometimes it took 3 days to get to their house. People just gotta be patient. The town board and the town highway guys were trying to do the best they could for the citizens of this community. And I still think, and I understand, and sometimes we were sanding driveways, all of a sudden it snowed, and you get that wet snow that sticks to ice, and it's no longer slippery, so we just stopped.
Right.
I mean, but it's not the idea, Randy's gonna have guys out there at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, at the same time, if your house is on fire at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I call Randy and say, I've got a fire call, turn your truck around and get there, I'm sure he will do it.
You won't
But
have to go.
people just have to, some of it, everybody ought to just calm down and just relax a little bit and say, let's just do what we've been doing. And if it doesn't get done today, they haven't forgot you. And people get this attitude that, and sorry, I see it from people moving in the community that don't know what's happened for the last 50 years, and they expect, well, and I don't mean to pick on New Jersey, but I'm gonna. Well, in New Jersey, all the politicians on the school board got paid off. Well, our school board doesn't get paid, period. And it's the same way, nobody here is getting rich and going to the Bahamas on doing something on the side. It's just, let's just have a small community where we can all get along and help each other.
Take care of ourselves.
Anybody else have a comment?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay,
Holly Smith, I think what is becoming apparent is that, whatever way the town goes, there's going to be controversy, and I would strongly recommend that, you do this with a lawyer, and, if it was, I was with the village, we got a great deal of help from the, Conference of Mayors, and they have model laws. And, but I would, in something like this where there is controversy, I would be very careful to be very legal. That's all, thank you.
yep, thank you. It's a good recommendation. Anybody else? Roundtable?
The only thing, I got a call today from Jennifer from Frontier Communications, who informed me that everything is peachy keen with Frontier. And, I told her, I don't think so. She said that the Route 8 and Route 30 have been completed, whatever that means, because our internet was going on and off, past couple of nights. And she said the back roads will be taken care of. When I explained to her that we get our internet through Fish Mountain, she had no idea what I was talking about. She was talking about the Forest Service doesn't let people take trees down, which I assured her, if you get a permit, you can do whatever you have to do if you're a utility. She's supposed to get back to me, because my major question I had with her was, besides the fact that I don't believe that they've completed anything.
I'm on Route 30 and I know they haven't.
Yeah, the fiber optic line that they put in, I told her that's when it all started, was when they started with the upgrade. It's wonderful that it's along the roads, but the wiring that comes in from the pole to my house has not been changed since, we've been here since '82. That's the same wiring. And as far as I know, if you're gonna put high speed to dinosaur wire, it's not gonna do much good. So she said, I will look into that and get back to you. That was noontime, never heard anything back. I probably won't. But I just figured I'd let you know that I'm still arguing and it's not
On that,
going too far.
I have high speed at my house.
Mm-hmm.
It took 6 weeks to get hooked up, because things were not done correctly when they installed all these back roads and so on and so forth. They did run a high-speed line into my house.
Oh, okay.
It is complete high speed literally, here's my modem, a foot and a half away is where the high speed ends, and there's a USB cord going to that modem.
And how
I
much
have-
extra did they
I
charge you for that?
have the monthly $5.99 in-house service plan,
Mhm.
so that's why it was covered completely for free.
I mean, even to do the outside wiring?
Yep.
Cause they should do the outside wiring
Anyways,
up to the house.
Up to the
anyway,
house,
yeah.
and if you have that surcharge for monthly plans, they came literally in the house, ran the wires through my house, and I had to screw the thing to the wall.
Is
They
this
wouldn't do that.
the FiOS, or is this,
Mhm.
and they don't charge you anything more than they charge for
My
regular?
phone bill went in half compared to what it used to be.
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I heard. Yeah.
I have 30 gigs now, and it went in
Okay,
half.
well, I guess we're making
But
phone calls
It
tomorrow.
took forever
Yeah,
to physically, yes, I want it, yes, I'll change it over, oh, it's all set, okay, make it happen, and it was 6 weeks
yeah,
of constantly on the phone every night. Why is it not hooked up? When are they hooking it up? What happened here? And come to find out, they have overhead and buried cable down Tamarack Road. Why, I have no idea. But they did a redundancy, and then they hooked up, half of it was overhead, half of it was underground. It was a mess. So,
I was told in the spring when the snow's gone.
yeah, it might be, but they ran it over the top of the ground to my house, over the snow, and said, either we'll bury it or you bury it at Crest. So,
Okay.
but they did run a high-speed line all the way to the house.
okay.
Ask how high speed is.
You can get, depends on how much you wanna pay.
Right.
I have
High
30,
speed used to be 6.
yeah, I have 30 right now.
Okay.
I had 4. I was paying for 4 and I had 4. 1 on most normal days.
Yeah.
And I have 30, I've tested it with their test and somebody else's test. Now,
Okay.
the problem with it, most of the programs and everything else out there, it's not much faster.
Yeah.
It really isn't. But
She,
the bill went in half and it's way more dependable.
yeah, this Jennifer told me that she was able to test mine while we were on the phone, and she says, oh, you've got a good speed, and I said, yeah, because it's working right now. I said, you know, this evening when we, you know, go to check email and nothing works, and, you know, so.
What did she consider a good speed?
I think we have, supposed to have 12 megs,
Hmm.
so, and I told her, I hope so, because we're paying for the extra, you know?
I called up, I'm paying, we usually have 1.3. And I said, what would it cost to get it better? She wanted to sell me 30. I said, how much am I getting right now? She says, oh, you're paying for 6. I said, if I'm paying for 6, why do I get
Get
1?
one, yeah.
Should I pay for 30 so I can get 15? She couldn't answer it, so I hung up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this call came from the letters that I've sent to the Public Service Commission and the petition. And, she says to me, I haven't had a service call for your house since April. And I'm thinking, well, whoop-de-doo. I said, everybody else in town has been calling and we've been all fighting it as a community. I know that I haven't had a repairman at my house, you know, for a while, but you're hitting your head up against the wall.
You do get a call back from Public Service Commission, from Frontier, if you complain to Public Service Commission.
That's why I
Because
got
I
her
did.
call.
And they called and apologized, and what can we do? Get us better service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris? No. Mike? No. Debbie?
No, thank you.
Happy birthday, Debbie.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday.
I'm gonna do you a big favor. I'm not gonna sing.
Thank you.
I know nothing about anybody needing an executive session, so if not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Do we have a second? All in favor? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for participating.